a mom and a wife and a pediatric dentist, and I'm a Greensboro native. I was born and brought up in Greensboro, and I went off to Chapel Hill for school and grad school, and then I did some further training in Philadelphia at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP, a residency over at University of Maryland. And so I traveled up and down the East Coast for some of my post-grad training. And then I met Stephen. We met in dental school at Carolina, Chapel Hill. And we stayed in touch through some of our extended training. And then we ended up getting engaged towards the end of our extended graduate school training, and decided to make a life back in North Carolina, where we both grew up. And Stephen grew up in Fayetteville, and we came back to Greensboro in 2008, 9-ish time frame. And then Stephen took over a practice in Guilford County, or in Greensboro. And I was a pediatric dental associate for a friend of mine in Winston-Salem. And then once we had Sophie, our daughter, after 5 years of marriage, the commute to Winston was becoming a little difficult for me. So then I started my pediatric dental practice from scratch within Stephen's space at the time. And then we've been very blessed, and things have taken off, and it got so big that we did have to physically separate the buildings from the adult and the pediatric practices. The pediatric practice is separate in on Pinedale, where you met us. Mm-hmm. And then Stephen we're on the same campus, so to speak, but Stephen took all his adult patients over to a street over, Oak Crest. And we still see a lot of families and take care of a lot of families. And they're able to, walk in between practices easily, and we can coordinate appointments for adults and children that way, or families that way. It's really interesting to me. I am full-blooded Indian from the country, India. Both my parents are first generation. I'm first generation, born and brought up in the States. My parents both were born and brought up in India. And they came immigrated in the 70s. And they first started in the New York and Boston areas. And then due to my dad's job, he was in textiles, he got recruited to the South. And that's how my sister and I were born in Greensboro, North Carolina, because of the heavy textile industry at that time that recruited him down to this area. And he was one of the first 10 Indian families, is what my parents tell me, in Greensboro. So that's really neat. And we do know those families, and we keep up with their children. And my dad was featured in a documentary. We'll have to figure out all the details of that, but we did see it. I can't remember exactly what it's the title. As one of the first, it was a documentary, I think, done with Indians in North Carolina, or the immigration of Indians to North Carolina. So that was a lot of fun, and that's kind of neat to show my daughter now. What's interesting to me is that I never thought I would marry somebody that wasn't Indian, but that had Asian background. And so Stephen is half Korean and half Caucasian, and we share a lot of similarities and differences, but a lot of similarities because we both have Asian background mothers.
Grew up in Greensboro, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm so used to saying Greensboro. Grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My mom, as Sona said, was from Seoul, Korea. Dad from Texas, and he retired from the military in Fayetteville, and that's how we ended up in Fayetteville. I've got a younger brother, and that's where we grew up, and a lot of things that Sona said very similar. Just culture and values of, how you talk to people and how you respect elders. And one distinct difference between, I think, the way I was raised, the way in general Indians are, is I was raised to be very punctual, on time. And and in the Indian culture, they've got a whole time zone called IST. So there's some similarities, but there's some differences there too.
Did you go to Korea when you were a kid, or was it later when you were in the military?
No, it was later when I was in the military. We couldn't afford. I grew up pretty working class, so that was out of the question to, get on a plane to go visit, to broaden your horizons. No, I had a scholarship for dental school through the Army, and I had the opportunity to serve a year over there, which was pretty awesome. So I got to see some family that had never met before, and here recently, right before the corona hit, we actually, Sona got to meet them, and my daughter got to meet them, so that was pretty neat. But growing up, no, never got to go over there. What's interesting is that last movie that just came out, Minari, it kind of brought back a lot of memories and a lot of phrases that I heard growing up. It's in subtitles, so I really liked that movie. But no, I didn't answer your question. My normal introduction to language was Spanish, and the French and Spanish in the 8th grade.
Yeah, we did have a blended wedding, which we're pretty proud of. Like, the invitations had the Om on it and the cross on the same invitation. Cool. And it was kind of blended artwork. So I was pretty proud about that we didn't have to have two separate weddings, that our families were open enough to allow that and be, happy about that. His mom, even though she told me that she grew up, some form of Buddhism, but she ended up becoming Christian, here, converting with his dad. His dad grew up Christian, of course. And then, so when we met, Steve and I met, and when it was time to talk about our wedding and what her wishes were, she was pretty, into her church, and she was, I think, at a Presbyterian church. So I thought it was really nice, and I was really grateful that Presbyterian minister of hers was willing to meet the Hindu priest and kind of blend the wedding together. I feel like our wedding was like the UN wedding. It was really cool, where we had like all of his mom and his aunt Emo, or his mom's sister, all in like the traditional Korean dresses, the hanboks. And then, my side was mostly in saris, and I wore a sari, and we had the mandap, and we had the fire set up. But then we also had the Korean preacher there, his mom's Korean preacher. And then we had all our American friends and, American outfits if they didn't want to wear Indian. So that was our wedding, and that was our start of our life together.
I think it's always been there, but it's just always been there. And, the way I've always thought about it is, someone's going to be like that. There's nothing really I can do to change them. Only thing I can focus on is me. And, it's always been there. That's what I think.
I think any violence, towards any human being is terrible, especially human to human, because I really see everybody as a human being, and we're all human beings. So I think any violence in any community is terrible, really is. And that's why the way we raise our daughter and the things that I try to focus on, and I try to live by, is kindness to all. We, as being dentists, we really see the community. We see people from all walks of life. we take medical assistants. So I see really all walks of life. I see, people that don't have anything and that are medical assistants to people that have a lot. And I see all different cultures, all different skin tones. And I try to treat everybody with kindness that comes into practice, that I get to, run across. And I think we both do. And I try to be that type of person. You can't be everything to everybody. I'm not perfect. I'm human as well. But I see my daughter seeing that, in her drawings and when she talks about things, and she also is adopting that. And I think it has to start at home. It has to start, in our communities, grassroots. I think there's some big problems, of course. So it's even beyond just her being different, or her, her parents looking different, or her grandparents acting weird. So we have open conversations with her. Again, I think it depends on the kid's psyche. It depends on the gender, girl or boy. She happens to be very open with us. We have that relationship that we built, and nothing is a taboo subject in our house. And thankfully, right now, she still comes to one of us, and we have open conversations. She's very verbal. Some kids aren't. So I think it depends on that too. But so in our household, we've been able to address it very openly, and we bring in the school counselor on it, and we talk to her openly, whether it's appropriate, whether she came to me, or if it's my mom or my sister, some of the big caretakers in her life. And we try to take what I know is the higher road. I try to say there's always going to be people that say mean things. They don't understand. They don't have the experiences you have. They might be scared. They have no idea what's outside of their hometown, or outside of their world, or outside of their home and church and school, or they might not know what's outside of Greensboro, but you do. And you're just going to have to choose you can choose how you respond.
We're real big believers in trying to be victors and not victims. And then so we're in control of how we respond. I can't control, no one's in control of anything except ourselves. So we can control how we respond. So we just take the higher road and have a victor mentality, and we're just not gonna cry ourselves to sleep over someone who chooses to say mean things or who's ignorant about things. I mean, there's nothing. I cannot change that. I think the victor thing is important, and then is how we live our life. And then the one thing that whenever I do these things, and people ask me, who are you? What do you do? I always tell people the same thing, that I'm a father, husband, son, brother, child of the Most High God, dentist, in that order of importance. And I think we're all human, and we're here to serve. And that's who I am. And you could probably, think Sona feels the same way.
Try to lead. I really feel like, any mentor or any person I looked up to, whenever they walk the walk, I wanted to be like that. And I feel like actions speak louder than words. So that's always my go-to when I'm having a tough situation with anything, whether it be because I'm a female, because I'm brown, because I'm whatever, or whatever I'm not. I really try to tell myself, the recorder that goes on in my head is, how can we turn this around? How can we be positive about this? How can I come out as the, victor? And I tell Sophie the same thing.